Hi, girl.
Hey.
Should we keep talking about the Knoxumentary?
Yes.
We're not going to do a recap. If you haven't heard part 1 of our 2-part series on the Amanda Knox documentary, go listen to it. Part 2 is not going to make any sense. All right. So at this point, Amanda and Raffaele are rotting in jail. And now we're 3 weeks after the murder. Mm-hmm. Bombshell.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Patrick Lumumba, bartender, cleared.
Bye, guy.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. He's like, thank God, man. I'm getting the hell out of Dodge. Jesus Christ. But police are now saying, doesn't matter. She was still killed by 3 people.
Yeah.
Because something that is actually accurate, there are traces of DNA that they can't identify. And the DNA is all over the house and inside Meredith's vagina.
We don't know how. They eventually just say that it was identified as this guy. What's his name?
Rudy Herman Gueda.
Okay. We'll just call him the guy at this point.
Or Rudy.
That's a word I could pronounce.
There are so many people you want to just start calling people the guy. We're sticking with Rudy.
All right, Rudy. So
locals described him as a slippery character. He was known for breaking into homes.
Yeah.
And immediately after Meredith's murder, he, speaking of getting the hell out of Dodge, just fled the country. All of these things are interesting to me.
So he's gone. He's gone from the country. They get, again, with the friends. Remember when Tanya Head's friend sang like a canary? My favorite line from that whole episode.
She did. She was like, girl, come on in here. She spilled all the tea.
She did. So they get one of his friends to spill the tea as well.
This informant.
You guys, non-gay people and non-RuPaul's Drag Race watching people, tea means information.
Yeah, and it's usually like, you can't say like spilling the tea isn't like, here's the subway you take. No. It's got to be like juicy information that you want.
So they get this friend to like make a Skype call to Rudy. And basically get him to be like, yeah, I was at Meredith's. I took a poop. And I mean, he literally is like, I went into the bathroom.
Yeah.
I came out, heard Meredith screaming. Mm-hmm. She was bloody. Her neck was cut. Mm-hmm. And she was clinging to me. And I got scared and left.
Which is is that why he didn't flush?
But it does actually make sense that if like you're rushing out.
This guy, there's a lot of.
No, he did it. This is the killer.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
So
he was like, I went to her house and we didn't do anything because neither of us had a condom. And it's like, but if you went over for a booty call, why didn't you bring a condom?
Right. Exactly.
And that probably explains why there wasn't a break-in, because he admitted to meeting her and kind of hooking up with her on the dance floor and all this stuff.
Yeah. So like the one big bombshell is that he says, by the way, Amanda wasn't there. She had nothing to do with this.
Right. And there's like audio and there are screenshots of the text. Like he actually said this.
Amanda's rotting in jail, you guys. Wasting the best years of her life.
Still looking great.
Listen.
Because that's the most important thing, everybody.
So an international arrest warrant is granted and they go and get him.
Right.
I mean, that was easy police work, guys. Good work.
Great. So then Amanda's like, I've seen this guy around.
So there's another jailhouse recording where Amanda's like, oh, that guy? Yeah. Like, I've seen him around. Like,
just the idea of knowing who could have done it. Like, I know him, kind of. I've seen him before with the neighbors. Like, we ran into him and we were talking to him or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I think I saw him play basketball with them once. And then I think once I saw him at my work. But, like, I don't even know his name.
So then we meet Rudy's lawyer.
Rudy ha sempre detto di non aver.
If I were like a cat watching this, the second Rudy's lawyer popped up on the screen, I would have been like, I just did not like him from the jump.
Walter Biscotti. He's Walter, not Walter. It's spelled with a V. Go check. Go get thee to Netflix. It's Walter.
He is smart. He's the kind of guy that I don't like because I can tell he's smarter than me. And like if I were to get into a conversation with him, he'd just shut me down in 2 seconds. So
he has a lot of zingers. There's one that we'll get to in a little bit.
My nickname for him was the sleazy Italian idiot, but you pointed out.
He's not an idiot.
Thanks, Joanne.
I just quoted Zodiac.
We're getting to Zodiac at some point, you guys. So here's this guy's whole plan. He knows that if he takes his client, Rudy, to court at the same time as Amanda and Raffaele, Rudy's going to get blamed for the whole thing. He's going to go away. They're going to get off. Mm-hmm. So he asks for what they call
a fast track trial.
I'm like, that's an option. Did anybody tell Amanda's lawyers?
Seriously. And then the 2 people can be tried simultaneously in 2 different cases.
Right. I know.
Like, What?
I know. So basically, the guy like shows up. He's like changes his whole story. Says that like, oh, when he came out of the bathroom, he saw Amanda basically like fleeing the crime scene.
And some other guy, but they couldn't see his face. Everything is just very convenient.
Ho avuto modo di guardare attraverso la finestra.
Well, anyway, but Nick, piece of garbage, just straight up admits he's like, nobody cared about Rudy's case.
No one was really that bothered about Rudy. I mean, obviously we gave it the cursory coverage, and we covered his trial, covered his sentence, but at the end of the day, there was no interest in him.
I mean, and that was like actually devastating to me because they're like, he's like, we gave it the cursory, like, oh yeah, this guy was convicted of her murder,
blah, blah,
but nobody
blah.
cared. Right, exactly.
And I'm like, wait a second. If he was convicted of her murder, why are we moving forward with Amanda and Raffaele's case?
Exactly. Okay, we're at the trial.
The cult of the girl known as Foxy Noxy is why Italians are calling this the trial of the decade.
Yeah.
It is now 1.5 years after the murder. They've been in jail for like a year now.
And everyone in the media is calling it a what?
Oh my God. They're calling what actually happened to Meredith a drug-fueled sex game.
Sex.
A drug-fueled sex game.
Drug-fueled sex game.
A drug-fueled sex game gone wrong.
This is another thing where it's like, it's just so disrespectful to Meredith and what actually happened. Like, as bad as they are to Amanda and Raffaele and I'm not taking any of that away from anybody, but it's still like, can you please stop this? There is someone was murdered.
Right. And it's a circus at the courthouse.
Yeah.
Like there's so many like international press from all over the world.
They can't even, they're like, they're scaling the walls in the court. It's insane.
It's crazy.
Oh, and Giuliano, of course, is there with a pipe like his idol, Sherlock Holmes.
This is the idiot prosecutor.
Quindi siamo arrivati al processo.
Who like literally is smoking a pipe, like, and he's out there saying like what a great job he's doing and how everyone's like patting him on the back and how easy this is going to be.
Right. And then he walks us through what he thinks happened to Meredith that night.
Okay, but he has like tools that he has. Can you please tell the people about the tools that he uses?
Okay, so there are these...
You're like literally rubbing your temples.
I am. I can't handle it. So there are these things on the internet, and this is not really, I don't know, this might not be very common knowledge, but there are these Taiwanese news videos that this was big like at that time. They don't use them so much anymore. They even used one in Parks and Recreation because it was like kind of a viral thing where it's like this weird... not new looking animation like that old, like, remember that Dire Straits video, Money for Nothing?
Yeah.
Like, and it was all like that weird robotic thing.
Yeah, it looks like when you're like watching a security video on a plane.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like this crazy, insane, that is not at all true reenactment of
where
the
they all
sensationalized...
sort of look like the characters that's supposed to be Amanda and Meredith and they all sort of look like each themselves.
And they do this for whenever they do it, it's always the same thing. Like, they kind of look like the people.
Yeah.
And it's always broken English that was run through Google Translate to say like what the people were thinking.
Right, exactly.
There's always like somebody running with like a knife in the air. Like, it's just ridiculous every time. And they're all over the internet. So after this is over, please go enjoy.
Yeah, so the theory of the crime is that literally, like, Meredith comes home and like, again, here's my slutty roommate, Amanda, and her, like, weird boyfriend, Raffaele, and they're, like, friend, and they're, like, drinking and having a sex party, and I'm so judgmental.
Right, and they, like, want Meredith to be involved, and she's like, I can't.
The actual dialogue that they use for Amanda confronting her says, why do you judge my morals so harshly?
Now I'll show you what's going to happen. You guys, this is the type of video this is.
Exactly. And so the idea is that, like, Amanda then has the boys hold Meredith down while she basically hacks her to pieces.
Right.
It's just crazy. And then it ends with idiot prosecutor saying, I am sure that Rudy and Raffaele were trying to indulge Amanda in every possible way that night. Pleasure at any cost. This is the heart of most crimes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how believable is that?
I mean, it's
negative 100.
Right. It's all of it is just ridiculous.
After nearly a year of testimony, Italy's so-called trial of the century has come to a close.
Amanda Knox may know her fate as early as tomorrow. There may be a verdict.
Then the verdict comes in, and it's like, I mean, they're now showing like news media from the United States. Everyone's like anxiously awaiting this verdict.
Dichiara Knox Amanda Marie e sollecito Raffaele.
So she stands up. They're both found guilty. He gets 25 years. She gets 26 years. Her family is there.
The verdict floored an unsuspecting Knox family. So convinced were they of their daughter's innocence, they'd brought her younger sisters along to court.
And she gets, like, totally taken away.
Right. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And, of course, they show a little bit of the Kercher family where it's like, happy that there's a little closure, but who's happy in a situation like this?
Right.
Everybody loses.
Everyone in the room here obviously associates Meredith with a tragic event, but we would prefer not to remember her in that way.
So in the aftermath of the verdict, right, like the idiot prosecutor thinks the whole thing is done now. He's won his case. He literally calls himself a prophet in his own country.
Oh, yeah. When I heard that, I was like, Patrick is going to lose his mind. Because he does that thing where he's like, I don't like to use the word hero, but I'm a hero. Because he even says, he was like, no one should call themselves a prophet. That was not my experience. When I was walking down the street of Italy, everyone was patting me on the back and calling me a prophet. And I'm like, dude.
It is weird, and we'll see this more later, but like the people of Italy think that Amanda Knox is a cold-blooded sex killer.
Oh, for sure.
It's crazy.
Don't forget satanic.
The last thing, and I had been wondering about this too, was that Raffaele, there's like this like shot of him in his modern day interview saying like back then he wanted to like send Amanda flowers for her birthday.
I was thinking about Amanda, and I wanted to send her flowers for her birthday to say, I'm here, I'm by your side, I still have feelings for you. But she clearly told me that her feelings were completely changed.
They're going through this trial together. They only knew each other for 5 days.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I mean, I guess he handled it in the way where he was like, well, we have to stay together. And he wanted to latch on, and it made his feelings magnified.
Yeah.
And I think she was like, I hate everything about this, and I just need to separate.
Ugh. Okay, so then obviously there's an appeal.
Now we're at 3 years later.
It took 3 years for the appeal.
Yeah.
Oh my
Appeals
God.
take forever.
Yeah.
And then you have to get another one, and then it's more time.
Right,
and it's more,
right,
I mean,
right,
it takes forever.
So, okay, so again, they're showing the American news media. She's being walked in for her appeal.
Mm-hmm.
And Shepard goddamn Smith on American Fox News, meanwhile, with his like eye lift and his mascara and his eyeshadow, basically in full drag. What does he say?
He goes, he's commenting on her appearance, saying she looks skinnier.
The convicted killer, Amanda Knox, was back in court today. They called her Foxy Noxy. Looked a little more pale today, skinnier than had been in the past. Maybe could use hair and makeup, but I guess you don't get that in jail.
Shepard Smith.
And I even Googled it to make sure it was really him, because I was like, I'm going to drag this person
I know her
through the
voice
goddamn
anywhere.
dirt. I thought it was
She
hers.
drags herself around the gay bars in Hell's Kitchen. I know what Shepard Smith sounds like.
What is she doing at Fox? Whatever. That's a whole
Exactly,
other,
exactly.
whatever. But okay, I know your computer and all the equipment's here, so I won't flip this table. But go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it becomes, and that's what
Totally.
it all was about. Like, we didn't really get into like how crazy it was, because it's just a lot of like flashes of headlines and everything. But the word satanic, femme fatale, sex game, sex goddess, sex man-eater, manipulator.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on every headline, and it was every little like lower third ticker on every news station.
Right.
And then for him to just like flippantly say that, it's like,
what an asshole. Yeah, just the
what
absolute
is
worst.
wrong with you?
I know. So we can't play any of this because it's in Italian. She makes like a plea to the court that basically she's saying to the Kercher family how sorry she is that Meredith is gone, and how, you know, she has like younger sisters too, and the thought of never seeing them again is so devastating to her. And it's kind of unexpected. I guess people don't generally do that there. And it works.
A legal victory for American Amanda Knox, who's appealing her murder conviction in Italy. The appeals court gave the go-ahead for an independent review of crucial DNA evidence.
And this opens up a can of worms.
right, because it's an independent study of the DNA.
Right. So this is not done by the state. This is now being done by independent contractors.
Right, which is good because they have no stake in this.
Right. What do they find out?
Oh, that everything is a mess. That, like we were saying in the first episode, they just traipsed around that crime scene.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get into how wrong they were about everything. And I love these two.
But wait, can we talk about like in the traipsing around the crime scene? This stuck out to me so much because this woman, I'm not making a claim on her sexuality, but she looks just like all of my mom's biker friends. My mom's a lesbian when I was growing up. This woman,
And it still is, probably.
she tries to kick in the door. She's like kicking, it doesn't work. She puts her foot through like a plate of glass.
She jump kicks the door. She jump kicks it, you guys, and glass goes everywhere.
Yeah.
And then she just like turns and looks around like, hey, I opened the door. And like, it's as this guy, Dr. Stefano Conti, is like, I can't even talk about the contamination. And then it's cut to this jump kick, and I'm just like, what the
I know. But he's like literally saying how like, because there's a video, the forensic police took video of them going through the crime scene that day. So they are not changing their gloves. A lot of people are coming in without any protective gear. They're not changing their booties. So like all of this cross-contamination is like none of the DNA evidence can be taken seriously because it's just like blatant cross-contamination. People aren't wearing gloves at all.
He uses the word chaos about 10 times and it's still not enough.
Because the police were running around with their hair on fire when they found a dead body. Remember that? It's like, what would happen if I found a dead body?
Every door was kicked in. Exactly. Nobody opened the door. Everything was kicked in. It was like
it was like I found a dead body. It's like me and Shepard Smith walked into a room full of dead bodies. Girl!
And he's just like, Patrick, would you do something with that hair? Run a comb through your hair, would you? You're like, Shep, don't you need a spray tan appointment, you dick?
Can you talk to me about your Aunt Carla Vecchiotti?
Oh God, I wish.
Pensavalle, yeah.
Totally, yeah. It all sounds the same.
So she's an Italian, like, what is her job?
She's just another independent forensic expert.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's they're both like contamination experts. They both basically say the same thing. I'm in love with both of them. They're smart and awesome.
Yeah.
So she says this bra clasp, right? Which was like such a big deal. The cops made the biggest deal out of it. She's like, hey, fun fact about that. It was discovered 46 days after the night of the murder.
Exactly.
Do you know how much DNA can travel, especially now that there's like all the windows are open because they smashed them all and they're chaotic. Things are just like floating in from all. I mean, it could be anybody. Like my hair could have been there.
Right, exactly. We're not gonna be able to use any clips in this part because it's all in Italian and you guys won't understand it. And like it's subtitled in the movie. But basically, we find out the bra clasp has 2 other unknown male DNA particles on it. Also, we find out that, remember the knife that had Amanda's DNA on the handle and Meredith's DNA on the blade? And she's like, it was, number one, the amount of DNA on that knife blade was so minuscule that it should have come up as inconclusive.
Especially Meredith.
Right, exactly. And also, she asked the state forensic people, did you test this independently? And they're like, no, why would we do that? We tested it with all of the rest of Meredith's stuff that we were testing. And she's like, well, that's lab contamination. Like, the amount of DNA that was found was so small that it shouldn't have counted anyway.
DNA is crazy. That's why, like, my husband Mike says it's pretty hard to be a criminal these days, especially with the technology. And, like, I shed everywhere. Like, I couldn't get away with anything, you guys. Like, I just couldn't. But things travel. Like, even when we come home from my parents' house, like, a couple days later, I'm like, oh, my God, that's the dog's hair.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's just, things travel. And so it makes sense that you're living. And Amanda Knox admits, like, it was a messy house. She even says, like, it was normal looking, but messy.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense that she would spend all this time at home and then go cook at her boyfriend's house, and, like, a piece of Meredith's teeny tiny DNA would end up on a knife that is inconclusive. Like, that is not weird.
So basically, they're like, yeah, there's no evidence here, guys. And then there's a surprise appearance from the future president of the United States.
It's not Barack Obama, you guys. Spoiler.
You guys, in his first act of foreign policy diplomacy, Trump has some suggestions for the way that President Barack Obama should handle this.
Can I say it so you don't have to play his stupid voice? Yeah. He just says to boycott Italy, and now we're moving on. The end. How did that Hamilton boycott go, by the way? Interesting. Like, boycott Italy.
Okay, here we go, Chile and Pensavalle. So now Rudy's slimy lawyer that I just like hated.
Walter Biscotti. Sounds like the Count.
This is the quote.
This is the quote.
Because what's happening is that, like, American TV is questioning the validity of the Italian court system because it's now come to light that, like, they fucked this whole thing.
Right. Ms. Anderson Cooper is having none of it.
The thing I can't wrap my mind around, though, is if the DNA evidence is incredible, how did things get to this point?
So Biscotti, on the other hand, is like, hold on. So he resents the fact that the American media, he says that American media is lecturing the Italians on how to do law, basically.
Right, exactly.
So he says,
Era la sede.
The courthouse was built in 1308. It housed the first faculty of law in Europe.
In America, nel 1308.
In America, in 1308, they were drawing pictures of buffaloes in caves. I love it.
I know.
I mean, I just love it. And he's sitting there with his legs crossed, and he's sort of like turned like catty cornered to the camera, and he's just very like, what?
I'm just telling you what is true. But I mean, I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, good point, sir.
Yeah, like, okay.
Point one, Biscotti.
No one's arguing that you guys started it. We're just saying you're doing it wrong right now. You got to focus on the right kind of details. That is what makes him a lawyer. That's what makes him a good lawyer. That he's like, well, in 1308, this is what we were doing. We're like, how about in 2000, whatever?
I know,
Can
exactly.
we move with the times? Thanks so much. You know who else is upset?
Who?
Stupid prosecutor, idiot prosecutor who you hate. He's really upset that the media is being mean.
I totally have that in quotes.
How interesting that now he doesn't like it. And he says this quote,
La stampa degli Stati Uniti.
every piece of proof has evidence of uncertainty. And in my notes in capital letters, it says, it shouldn't. That's why it's proof.
Well, the thing is, what he's saying there is that he's like, America is focusing on the DNA evidence. And I'm saying that she was acting weird. Literally, he says that.
Yeah.
He's like, America was focusing on the DNA, the actual hard evidence. And he's like, but her behavior was funny.
No, DNA is DNA. You can't argue with DNA. That's why I'm such an evidence person. If there's no evidence there, I don't care how weird somebody was acting. Someone was acting weird.
Right, exactly.
So what?
4 years after the brutal murder of British roommate Meredith Kercher, it's all come down to this.
Outside the courthouse, the world awaits. Frenzied journalists from around the globe, all counting down the moments until Amanda Knox's fate is revealed.
So Amanda is brought in yet again by who I can only imagine at this point is her old friend, the woman who leads her into court every single time.
Right.
Do you think when they see each other, they're like, oh, hey, nice to see you again?
I think they look at each other and they're like, is today the day? Like, I think they both hope they'll never see each other again. In the best way possible,
Totally,
right?
Yeah. So Amanda is led in, and it's like, this is it. I mean, like, this is going to be either she's going to get out of jail or, like, she's going to be in jail for the rest of her life. She goes and, like, she sits down, and, I mean, the camera is, like, on her.
Yeah.
And the judge walks in, and you're like, oh, my God, girl, can you just say it? Yes or no, yes or no?
And now it's 4 years after the murder now. Yeah. So this has been a 4-year-long ordeal for her.
And she's acquitted.
Silenzio. Silenzio, per favore. Silenzio.
I've seen this documentary, and she was acquitted, and she started crying. I started sobbing.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really emotional moment. And then, all of a sudden, well, she and Raffaele are acquitted, and, like, they have to be bum rushed out of there. Italy hates them.
And it's nighttime. Why are they doing this at night?
I know. Listen, I've seen Night Court. I know that, like, that's a thing.
Oh my God, Night Court. Remember Night Court? Nice.
So they get, like, rushed out. Meanwhile, Amanda can barely stand because she's so emotional. And, like, she is surrounded by people.
People are screaming.
Yeah. They're out in the street. They're like, for shame.
Great disappointment among people out here that Amanda Knox has been found not guilty in the murder of Meredith Kercher.
Yeah, I was like, what is this, Game of Thrones?
I know, guys, calm down. And, like, they just get the hell out of there.
And they both go home. And Raffaele even says, how does he get back to the real world?
I was a simple computer guy. Now everybody know me. They look at me on the street. They ask me questions. They treat me like a movie star when I'm not, and I'm inside the tragedy still.
People treat him like a movie star, but it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
And then, you have the media saying, well, she's either, Amanda's either going to have a normal life or she's going to go on Dancing with the Stars, and then we'll know what her motivation is.
Well, like, they have all this stuff. Like, they show her, like, landing in Seattle, and you hear, like, the newsroom being like, there she is.
There she is. She's there. She is coming down the stairs. She's coming down the stairs.
Like, it's crazy.
I see her too.
I know.
Down.
And then you have, like, the news media people outside her house, like, hounding her dad, like.
But you're aware that, I suppose, as the longer you leave it, in a sense, the less, the less money you're going to get ultimately.
What do you mean? Is
well, you're not such. She's not such a hot property in an interview term. If you wait a month.
I'm not looking at her as a hot property.
I could see the dad just, like, making the decision in his mind to not knock that guy out.
Yeah, because then that would be the story.
Exactly.
Amanda Knox is crazy satanic sex godfather, and you're
gets
like,
knocked out. Listen, I should have been a copywriter.
Totally. Oh my God, I almost just fell over in my chair. That's how much I leaned back. That was great.
And then, but, like, Amanda's, like, talking about, like, going to the grocery store.
I get into a line at the grocery store, and the person behind me is like, whoa. It's you. I know you.
Well, and I mean, truly, it's what I would do. If I saw Amanda Knox right now, I would be like, And she's like, and people are like, I know you. And she's like, you don't know me.
And I really want to turn to them and say, who the fuck are you? And you don't know me.
So after she's been home for a while, is again decided that like the case, they've been stripped of their acquittal. They're guilty again. And now it's going to go back to the Supreme Court. And this happens real quick in the documentary, so we'll just kind of breeze over it.
The end of this documentary, a criticism is that we just blow through it.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to know more about the Italian courts and why they can do this, why they can try someone who's not there. This was all based on circumstantial evidence and her behavior. So they were the Italian courts were like, thanks so much for all the DNA testing, thank you, but we're going to go in a different direction, and we're going to use her behavior instead.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they were just sort of like, hey, so now Amanda and Raffaele are just going to walk on eggshells for an indeterminate until we tell you not to.
Right.
And we're just going to decide without you what the verdict is going to be.
Yep.
And maybe you'll have to come back here and serve the rest of your life. Maybe not. I don't know.
We'll get back to you, girl. Yeah. So it cuts to her like a house in Seattle, and she's there with all of her family, and she's watching it on a computer. Like all of a sudden, it's like breaking news. Like this decision's going to be told any minute.
Amanda Knox's Italian attorney this morning says Amanda is worried and has had a sleepless night. Meredith Kercher's family has made its wishes clear. They are convinced of Amanda's guilt and would like to see her imprisoned back where this all began, in Italy.
And then all of a sudden it's just like, and she's free. Like she's acquitted.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I'm getting chills hearing you.
I know.
They're both fully exonerated.
Yep. And she freaks out, of course, and she like jumps up and I was really happy to see that she immediately runs and calls Raffaele.
Of course.
Because I didn't know if they were still friends. I didn't know like what the state of their friendship was.
I think in that regardless,
Yeah.
where you're just like that feeling of, all right, now it's really done.
Yeah,
Because two
yeah.
other times you thought it was really done.
Yeah.
For the better or for worse, it's done. We're guilty. It's done. We're not.
Yeah.
And now it's like, we're done.
Raffaele! Siamo liberi! Come stai tu?
So like one of the last things we see is the hot on the outside, gross on the inside, idiot writer, journalist guy, who they're asking him about like to sort of reflect on what he had done, right?
Yeah.
So he looks back and he says,
And I think now, looking back, some of the information that came out was just crazy, really, and it's just completely made up. But hey, what are we supposed to do, you know? We are journalists and we are reporting what we are being told. It's not as if I can say, right, hold on a minute, I just want to double check that myself in some other way. I mean, goodness knows how. And then I'll let my rival get in there first before me and then, hey, I've lost the scoop.
Clearly, this guy has like absolutely no actual journalistic ethics. Like what he's literally saying right there is it's not my job to fact check. It's my job to take whatever you tell me and put it right out in the press.
Yeah, and then say like, because that's what the people wanted anyway.
Exactly.
He takes no responsibility.
Yeah.
And he's really just focused on how many front pages he got, you guys.
You know what he had to do? Go right home and lock down his Twitter account.
Well,
Because
you
I
know
can
what?
only imagine what the vitriol this idiot must have gotten.
To do that and then not even be able to take it back and be
Right.
one of those people who's like, hey,
Yeah.
I can dish it, but you know, like this is what free press, like this is why everything is great and we can do that.
Exactly,
And you go home and lock, like,
Yeah. So it like ends with Amanda Knox. Somehow they got an entire ferry to themselves. And it's just like Amanda Knox on a ferry, like in Puget Sound or something.
Right.
And you know, we haven't touched on this at all, but like at 3 different places in the movie, she has these like really serious quotes that are like to the camera.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was that written down? Like, did she like, it doesn't, they're a little bit too on the nose to be like off the cuff.
Yeah.
It ends with her talking about like monsters.
I think people love monsters. And so when they get the chance, they want to see them. It's people projecting their fears. They want the reassurance that they know who the bad people are and it's not them. So maybe that's what it is. We're all afraid. And fear makes people crazy.
Girl, that was a doozy.
I know, I'm tired in the
I know,
best
me
way.
too,
I
me
feel
too,
like
me
I just
too.
ran 10 miles.
Okay, what are we, okay, tell me what we're doing next.
We're doing Jesus Camp.
Do you have any feelings about it?
Oh, I have so many feelings about, I get riled up about child abuse, so yes.
Me too. And I get riled up about like God shit.
Yeah.
I want to be clear. I believe in God. I was raised by like a full-on. My mom's a lesbian. I was an altar boy. My mom loved being Catholic.
Mhm.
She then like went around to other churches until my mom's an Episcopalian. She went back to school to be. I don't know why I'm feeling like I have to explain this to everybody.
That's okay.
But she went back to school to get her master's in divinity to become a priest. She didn't. She became a chaplain. I believe in God. I have major issues with organized religion. That said, here's the trailer for Jesus Camp.
This is a sick old world. Kids, you gotta change things. Boys and girls can change the world? Absolutely.
I pledge allegiance to the Christian flag.
There are two kinds of people in the world, people who love Jesus and people who don't.
Where should we be putting our focus? I'll tell you where our enemies are putting it. They're putting it on the kids. How long have you been a Christian?
At 5, I got saved.
Yeah?
Because I just wanted more of life.
You go into Palestine and they're taking their kids to camps like we take our kids to Bible camps, and they're putting hand grenades in their hands.
There's an excitement, yet there's a peace with it all, too. It's really cool. I really feel that we're a key generation to Jesus coming back. And we are a generation that needs to rise up and run with that baton.
Yeah.
How many of you want to be those who would give up their lives for Jesus?
We're being trained to be God's army.
There's a new church like this every 2 days in America.
25% of the American population, that's about 80 million people.
If the evangelicals vote, they determine the election.
They've taken over the White House, Congress, the judiciary for a generation.
This is just the tip of the iceberg. This means war! Are you a part of it or not?
Oh, it's going to be a really light and fun episode, everybody. Get excited. And it's on Netflix.
You guys, in the last 2 days, we've gotten like 9 new iTunes reviews. I'm obsessed with the iTunes reviews. Please rate and review us on iTunes. I read them every day. I check like 4 times a day to see if we have any new ones. I love you for doing it. Jillian, where else can they find us?
At truecrimeobsessed.com and on Twitter at truecrimeobsess. No ED.
You guys, I cannot look. Thousands and thousands and thousands of you have found our podcast. We are so overwhelmed and amazed by it. Please continue to share your favorite episodes so more people can find us. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, everybody.
We love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you.